Welcome to part 5 of the Google Drive Bootcamp training for English. My name is Mrs. Bomey. I teach English in Yearbook. I will be your host for this segment. We're going to be creating a spreadsheet and applying a filter to it, and then taking a look at a form. Your assignment is going to be to complete that form, and then you will have something to do with the spreadsheet also. So let's get started. I'm in my Google Drive, and I want to make sure, as always, when I'm creating something for English, that I'm in the correct course. So I'm going to go to Start, and I'm going to get into that English folder that we made in part 1. So now that I'm in here, I'll go to the plus sign, and I'm going to start by making a sheet. There's blank spreadsheets and templates as usual. We're going to start with a blank. And it's asking me to share because my folder is shared and the system wants to make sure it's okay for people to have access. I will say create and share, and I get this untitled spreadsheet. Let's start right from the very beginning by giving this a title and call it My 2021 Schedule hyphen your last name and your first name. Please don't put Joe Jones, put your name. You'll have your basic navigation across here that you're used to for your drop-down menus. The way spreadsheets work is they work with letters and numbers. So across the top, all of these columns are referenced with letters. So this one that I click on is column A, B, F, and it will continue on and on and on off to the side, all the way set up to Z. But if I added a new column by clicking here and going to insert and adding a column to the right, it's going to begin by calling this one AA. And then if I inserted another column, it would be AB and AC and AD. And then when it gets to AZ, then it would pick up with B and continue all the way through. You're not going to have that many though. Let's go back to our starting point. Down here, for all of the rows are numbered. Row 1, row 7, and I believe it starts you with about 1,000 rows available. Of course, you can add more. Yep, you can add them in groups here. It doesn't really matter that you have blank rows at the bottom. All we need to worry about is the ones that we're going to put content in. So I will be referring to cells using the normal naming convention, which is the letter and the number. So this cell is cell A1. This cell is F9. And you can see that the F and the 9 are just ever so slightly darkened for you to know where you are currently located. So I'm going back to cell A1, and I'm going to type across row 1 and set up the various columns that I want to have. So column A is going to be period, and then I'm just simply hitting a tab, and it's going to take me to the next cell to the right. If you want to move your mouse and go in and click on each one, you can, but if you want to be efficient, type and get in the cell and then hit tab, and that will take you over to the next column. Now I'm going to put class, and then I'm going to put teacher, and I'm going to put email, and then Q1/3 and Q2/4. I'll explain that in a second. And now I'm done. So when I hit the return button, it's going to take me back to the far left-hand side in the next row. Down here, we're going to list all the periods in the day. So whatever you happen to have in a full year schedule. 1, and then I'm hitting the down arrow, 2. So there's all my periods. Now it might not look the way you like to look. Don't worry about that. We can format it later. And here I'm going to go ahead and put in my schedule for the year. So you might need to go into Infinite Campus at this point. You might want to pause the video and pull up Infinite Campus and find out what your class schedule is for the entire 2020-2021 school year. I'm going to put in a sample schedule of a fictitious student, just so you can see what goes in each column. So here for period 1, Joe Jones is enrolled in AP English 12, and the teacher of that is Mrs. Romanowski. And her email is her first initial last name. Your teacher's name should be listed in your schedule. So she's J. Romanowski at guhsd.net. You'll notice if I click away here that her name has interfered into this E column. But if I click here in cell E2, there's nothing written right here. This is only going to show me what's been entered in this cell. If I come over to D2, I see the entirety of her name, which is what I want. I'm going to hit the tab. And period 1 is in quarters 1 and 3. So I'm just going to put an X there. And you'll notice part of Mrs. Romanowski's email address disappeared. That's okay. I'm going to hit the tab. I can't see the whole thing on my screen, but if I click here, the entirety of her email address does appear in the formula bar. Again, we'll format this in a little bit to make it look prettier. So now I'm going back to period 2, and I'm going to continue to enter my schedule. Now, my second period class, guitar with Mr. Lawrence, is an even class. So that's going to be in quarters 2 and 4. So I'm not going to put anything in cell E3. I am going to put an X in cell F3. And now I'm going to continue to put in the remainder of my schedule. And you should be doing the same. Okay, I have all my classes in. I have a pretty full schedule this year. AP English 12, guitar, chemistry, government, dance, and German. So my schedule's in, but it doesn't look very appealing to the eye. This column with the periods in it is just, it's way too big. Periods over here, these numbers don't take up that much space. So grab this part and tighten it up. All of my classes are showing really well, so that's fine here. All my teachers' names are fitting. I could tighten it a little bit if I wanted. Make sure everything fits on the screen. I know your Chromebook screens are pretty tiny. Here, if I click on this, I can still see everything in column D. Can you see right here how I can still see them overflowing? So I can come here and just pull this over. And now everything fits, and these columns are obviously way larger than they need to be. Let me tighten that up. I can also apply some other formatting. For example, I can either select everything in column A from row 1 all the way down to row 999, or I could just grab the cells I want to impact, but for us it doesn't make a difference. And then I'm going to come here and I'm going to change and have these be centered. And I think I'll do the same thing for both of these columns. So I clicked on E and still holding down, I dragged over to F. I have them both at the same time, and I'm going to center that up. Okay, that looks a little bit nicer to me. It's a little bit easier to read. I also would like to make this top row, this header row, look a little better. I'm going to align everything here, and what it's going to do is put all the words in the very center of each cell. And I'm going to go ahead and make them bold so they stand out a little bit. That looks pretty nice. I can also apply some other formatting to it if I want. For example, I can just pick these cells, and then I can go up under Format, and I can add alternating colors. This is a nice touch. Pick the one I like. I'm fond of green. I'm going to pick this one. And it applies this nice look to it. My header row is a bright color, And then my alternating rows go from white to a pale green, which makes it easier for my eye to follow it all the way across. Compare it to this look. If you don't care for that color, maybe, whoops, that color doesn't exist, yikes. Okay, that's fine. I'll come back to alternating colors and let's try this purple one. Purple one's nice too. Again, I can make changes to the font and the size if I want. I can do it by simply picking one cell and maybe making Mrs. Addie's name bigger and changing her to Roboto font and making Mr. Vanderhyde be, let's see, we'll give him that. And we'll make his email really big. Oh, it didn't actually come out all that large. I can make some changes like that. I can also apply them to the entire table by selecting. I'm clicking and dragging. It's kind of hard to see that it's selected because of the purple. Or another thing I can do is click here to the left of the A and above the 1, and it's going to select everything on my screen. Everything, all the way over to that column AB and all the way down to row 999. This isn't my way, I'm just going to make him go away. And I can change this to a font that I like. I already told you that I like Garamond, and I'd like it to be a little bit bigger for my poor old eyes. Now that I've done that, it's a little bit choppy again. So I may want to come in and just open things up a bit, give a little bit of space, make it easier for me to see things between columns, and definitely separate those quarters. Okay, I'm happy with that. That's looking pretty good. So this is lovely, but it's your schedule for the whole year, and we know that we're doing things by odd quarters with odd periods and even quarters with even periods. So maybe I just want to filter this down so I can easily see this year what I have. Let me fix this column and who I need to contact. I'm going to come over here to filters. And if I click on this, oops, sorry, I'm clicking the table. I'm going to come over here and add filters. And then you will notice that each of these columns got this little upside down lined pyramid next to it. And it's kind of squished my stuff up. This Q is getting cut off. It just says Irio over here instead of period, but that's okay. As soon as these go away, you'll see everything fits back into place the way it was. Tidy that up. There we go. So again, I want to turn on the filter. And now I want to filter just my first and third quarter classes. So I'm going to come here, and if I scoot down, it tells me right now it's pulling in things with blanks and things that are checked. So if I only want to see the things that are checked, I'm going to get rid of the blanks and say okay. And now periods 2, 4, and 6 disappeared. And this little funnel has replaced the upside down pyramid. So I can click on it again. If I want to see everything, I could either select all, or I could go ahead and add blanks back in and say, okay, now I see everything. If I only want to see my second and fourth quarters, I can make that adjustment. There's a lot of applications for spreadsheets way beyond this. They're excellent for math and science and formulas. I use them with my English classes normally. Come on, give me everything. Got to go all the way down and say okay. But here's my schedule, and if I want to get it back to everything and not accidentally filter, I can just turn the filter back off again, and there's all my schedule laid out. I could even print this if I wanted to and give it to someone who, like my parents, or put it up on the fridge, or I could print it and put it in front of my workstation. Either way, you've got all the pieces you need here to put a spreadsheet together. This spreadsheet should already be located in your English folder. If it's not, use this function to put it there. And if it is, you can go ahead and close this tab, go back to Drive, and just wait here. And I'm going to demonstrate to you about forms. So you can create a form if you would like. by going here, and you're going to have to come all the way down to More, and then Forms will pop up. Again, there's blank forms and there's template forms. You don't need to make one right at this moment. Your task for forms is going to be to complete the form that I'm sharing with you. So I want to show you a form that I made called Where You Start 2021. This form is set up in sections, and I have my directions at the very beginning. Then I have a place for students to give their information. So when you fill out the form, you're going to put your last name, whatever first name you like to be called. Joseph Jones likes to go by Joe. We already know that, so he would put Joe here. What period you have English, and who your English teacher was last year. There shouldn't be anyone who's not listed here, but just in case, perhaps if you were in an online course like an Acellus course, or you were doing another course with a teacher on campus that wasn't one of our primary English teachers, then you would pick this option. And if you were a freshman or a new transfer, welcome, but you were not at West Hills last year, so pick that option. Then here, you're going to pick who your English teacher is this year, and I will get rid of that option. Then we're asking you who your 10th and which courses you were in 10th and 11th grade. Pick the answer that works best for you. This next section is going to ask you how you feel about each of these issues, how confident you are in your skills in this area. Please know that we understand that you might be rusty. Please rate yourself, like it says here, if you had the chance to warm up a little bit. We don't want to know about where your skills would normally be when you haven't been in school since March 13th. We understand that they're rusty. But in the normal flow of things, like maybe looking back on yourself in March of last year, where do you think your skills were? How do you feel about rhetorical appeals? If you own these and you understand them, you can read a text and ID them, put yourself here. If you don't have any clue what I'm talking about when I say rhetorical appeals, that's fine. You're going to pick option 5. We're also asking about ethos, logos, and pathos, a little bit about précis and claim and subclaim. But as you can see, there's a whole bunch of different questions that you can ask and group together. Some of the questions are multiple choices for you to pick from. Sometimes in a form, you can ask people to give short answers to things, or actually long answers as well. And it continues through. This is section 5. Here you've got some check boxes, and you can pick this one, this one, this one. Or if you have a different term that you'd like to use about how you feel about rhetoric, you don't think confident, concerned, or lost captures it, then go ahead and put that term there. But keep your answer short. And then in the last section, we're asking you to reflect. If you were to tackle an article, if your English teacher gave you an article and said, read this, what would your process look through? So this you can see says long answer text. We're looking for you to really explain to us from the moment that article hits your hand or you pull it up on the screen, what do you do from beginning to end? And then the last question is, what's one area where you think you really need support with writing assignments this year, so that you can do better than you were performing last year before schools went on lockdown? We don't necessarily want to have you compare it to how you did when you were on lockdown, but if there are things that were barricades to learning for you in the spring that inhibited your ability to improve your writing or perform as well as you think you could with writing, this is a good place to put them together. Now I'm going to scroll all the way back up to the top of my form, and I'm going to click on this preview button so that you can see what the form really looks like. When you log in, it's going to say the email address that you're using. This is the account you're logged into in Google. You should be in your student account. You should not be in a personal account. We know people have them. I have them. But for all of your schoolwork, make sure you are using your @GUHSD account. If not, you would switch here. Then I would say next, and I would go in and I would start to type in my information down the form and pick which period I'm in and who my English teacher is this year. I think we already established I have Mr. Takarico this year. And then in 10th grade, okay, I'm a sophomore now. I'm a sophomore now. And then I say next. It's going to stop me section to section and make sure that I'm doing all of the required ones. Then for these questions, remember when we looked at it before, we could see all the answer options as we were putting the form together. I'm just going to go through. I've read these questions, but you take your time and read through them and come up with your best answer. And I'm feeling pretty good about these things. I don't know what claim is. If I don't know claim, I probably don't know subclaim. Put that together. And then I'm going to go through, and you would need to type in something. I'm just putting some letters here so I can turn in my form. I want you to see the entire process. Last section, I will read all the questions and pick the best answer. And here's the one where I said, you know, I feel lost, but I also feel interested. Or maybe I want to say curious. I don't know. Say next. Describe the process. This would be my very detailed answer. And then here, I would say something. And now it's telling me that a copy of my responses is going to be emailed to me, because the way this form was set up, anything you put in the form, you're going to get a copy of that email to you. I strongly suggest that you keep that copy in your email as a receipt so that you can prove, if you ever need to, that you submitted the assignment. And then I'm going to say submit. And that is how you fill out a form. Now, ultimately here, back on the original form where I was working, it says I have had one response. And it's giving me the summary, and there I am. My email address, the information, I'm getting a visual. 100% of the people who have answered are from period 7, because I was the only one who answered. And all of the responses that anyone fills out for your form will be laid out for you here. They can also be shown in a spreadsheet, which is how your English teachers are going to be giving you credit for this assignment. So make sure that you complete this Where You Start 2021 survey, and then all of your English teachers will be able to go into the spreadsheet. They'll be able to sort it and filter it just like we did with your class schedule, and they will be able to give you credit for the assignment, and of course to read your answers and get a feel for how students are doing with their rhetorical skills for this year, so we know where to go next. Thank you so much for completing part 5. And if you haven't completed parts 2, 3, and 4, please go back and make sure that you do those now.